Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are doing something a little different.
Yeah, we really are.
Usually, we look at a book as a piece of literature. It's something that's been constructed, edited, and put on a shelf for us to read.
Right, it's a finished product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But today, we have to look at our source material. Well, more like a crime scene.
Or maybe a piece of forensic evidence. That feels closer. Evidence in a trial that hasn't even happened yet.
It's really the only way you can approach this text. We are diving into The Sacred Book of the Werewolf by Victor Pelevin. But before we can even get to the story, the characters, the philosophy,
You have to deal with the frame. The expert commentary right at the start of the book basically tells you, do not read this as fiction. This is a file found on a laptop.
and not just any laptop left behind at a coffee shop.
Yeah.
This laptop that was recovered from a rucksack in the middle of Bitsevsky Park in Moscow.
And the circumstances of how they found it, this is where it gets really weird really fast.
The militia report, it reads less like a police blotter and more like the script for some kind of hallucinogenic sci-fi thriller.
Thriller might be putting it mildly. The report is describing a scene of just absolute atmospheric chaos. You've got reports of a bluish glow just hanging there above the treetops.
Yeah, and ball lightning.
Ball lightning darting all over the place. And then there's this one detail that I just love. It's so unsettling. Spherical rainbows.
What even is a spherical rainbow?
Exactly. The report says the colors seem to shine through one another. It's like it's deliberately defying the laws of optics from the very first page.
It sets the tone immediately, doesn't it? We're in modern Moscow. This is supposedly the real world, but the physics are slippery.
It's very slippery. And in the middle of all this, on the ground, they find the physical evidence.
A bicycle frame, specifically a Cannondale Jekyll 100, and it's been half melted.
Which implies just this incredible heat, right? Or maybe some kind of energy discharge that we just don't have a frame of reference for.
And the grass around it isn't just burnt. It's scorched into the shape of a perfect five-pointed star.
Inside that star, they find the rucksack.
And inside the rucksack, some clothing, a pair of panties marked Sunday, and a T-shirt. And this T-shirt, this is our first real taste of the kind of linguistic games this whole story is going to play with us.
Right. The shirt has the letters CKUF printed on the chest. Now, the militia report notes that the average person, and let's be honest, you and I are included in this, would look at the cuff and immediately think.
You think it's a curse word, a typo, or maybe a sort of punk dyslexic anagram for an English obscenity? That's exactly where my brain went.
Of course. But the experts in the story's preface, they correct us right away. They say, no, look at the font. It's a kind of pseudo-Cyrillic. They argue it's actually a reference to the Scythians.
From the famous poem by Alexander Bloch.
Exactly. It's a warning to you, the reader, right at the gate. Do not trust your first impulse. Words here are traps. They mean one thing to the uninitiated, the cuff, and something totally different to those in the know.
And that brings us to the document itself. The file they found on the hard drive. The original file name was Ehuli.
Yes. And this is the second trap. Because if you say Ehuli out loud, in Russian,
It sounds aggressive. It sounds exactly like the Russian phrase for why the hell, or maybe more like Sophieing what. It's a challenge.
it's an obscenity. But the narrator, the person, the entity who wrote this file, insists it's her name. In Chinese, A is her first name, and Huli is her surname. It means fox.
So that's our mission today, to decode the memoirs of Ohuli. She claims she's a 2,000-year-old Werefox, working as a high-end prostitute in modern Moscow.
And we need to explore her philosophy, her biology, her absolutely devastating critique of men, and her encounter with Russia's elite, who turn out to be, well, monsters in a very literal sense.
This is going to be a wild ride. Let's start with the fox herself. Ohuli. She's not human, is she?
No, not at all. She's a biodiversity of one. She claims she was given her name long before the Russian language, as we know it, even existed. And there's this fascinating, almost tragic story she tells about her name and the Russian alphabet. It really highlights how alien she is.
Tell me about that.
She talks about a seal she owned back in 1913, carved on an opal.
So this is Tsarist Russia, right before the revolution.
Exactly. And in the pre-revolutionary alphabet, there was a specific letter called the decimal I. It looked just like our English I, a vertical line with a dot on top, and this letter was crucial for her.
Why?
Because it allowed her to write Ahuli in a way that made it distinct from the Russian profanity, it gave her dignity, it made her name a name and not a curse.
But then the Bolsheviks came.
The 1918 spelling reform, The communists got rid of the decimal I and a few other letters to simplify the language, make it easier for the masses to learn. Ahuli says that when they reformed the alphabet, the communists took away the final prop of her self-respect. Suddenly, her ancient, noble name became a dirty joke that was being written on every fence in Russia.
She even quotes Wittgenstein here, doesn't she? Names are the only things that exist in the world.
It's completely central to how she sees reality. She believes names are the anchors. The thing itself might be fluid, but the name gives it shape. But when history moves on, when a government falls, the name can stay the same, but its meaning gets hijacked.
Her identity was stolen by linguistic evolution.
You could say that. She's a creature of language as much as she is a creature of, well, flesh.
Speaking of flesh, let's talk about her biology. She describes herself as looking like a teenage girl, a very attractive one. But she's 2 millennia old. How does she handle that kind of memory load? I mean, I can barely remember what I had for breakfast last Tuesday.
Well, her memory doesn't work like ours. She describes the fox memory as a black void. They don't have this continuous stream of consciousness that we do.
So she doesn't remember everything.
She only clearly remembers the last 10 or 20 years. That's her active memory. Everything else, the Roman Empire, the Ming Dynasty, all of it sinks into this dark well. To remember something from 500 years ago, she has to perform this painful, conscious act of dredging it out of the darkness.
It sounds like a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
It keeps her from going insane under the sheer weight of history.
Precisely. Can you imagine remembering every single moment of 2,000 years? You'd be paralyzed. And this biological quirk, it ties into her idea of the simulacrum.
Simulacrum, what's that?
Foxes are shapeshifters, but not in the way you see in the movies, with the crunching bones and fur sprouting everywhere. It's much subtler. They adapt their personality, their vibe, even their subtle physical traits to match whatever the current era considers standard or attractive.
So she's like a mirror of the times, a cultural chameleon.
She literally says they changed their soul to match the fashion, just like you'd alter a dress. If the 1920s demand a flapper, she becomes that. If the 2000s demand a cynical, waif-like teenager, she becomes that. She's the ultimate conformist. It's biological mimicry taken to a spiritual level.
So she doesn't really have a self in the way we think of it.
She has a reflection of what we want her to be.
But the physical magic, the real supernatural element here, is the tail. We have to talk about the tail.
The tail is absolutely the star of the show. Physically, she keeps it hidden. I assume it's retracted or, metaphysically obscured somehow. But when she chooses to unfurl it, it expands into what she calls a fiery red plume about 1 meter long.
And it's not just a limb.
No, it's a hypnotic antenna.
She uses it to cast illusions.
You're right.
To control what her clients see.
She does, and she explains that she doesn't know how she does it. It's like asking you how you see with your eyes or how you decide to move your arm. It just happens. It's instinct. She spins the tail, and it creates this web of hallucination.
You can make them see anything.
Within limits. She can make a client see a luxury hotel suite when they're actually in a complete dump. She can make them see the woman of their dreams standing in front of them.
But you said there are limits.
Right. One person is easy. She says she can take total control of their visual cortex. 2 is harder because the signal has to split. 3. 3 requires a real feel for the room. It's an art form, not just a superpower. She has to conduct the hallucination like she's a conductor with an orchestra.
And the purpose of all this hypnosis isn't just for fun or self-defense. It's about feeding. She works as a prostitute, but she doesn't actually, engage in the physical act.
No, she claims that biologically, foxes are like angels. They don't reproduce. They don't have the organs for it. What she feeds on is yang energy, the sexual energy released by men at the point of climax.
So she's an energy vampire. A succubus.
Sort of. But, and this is absolutely crucial to understanding her character, she has a code of ethics. She doesn't see herself as a monster.
She calls it the bride returns the earring.
That's the poetic name for her technique. She believes that if you just drain a man completely dry, you invite heaven's wrath. It upsets the karmic balance of the universe. So at the critical moment of that energy transfer, she reverses the flow, just for a second. She gives a tiny bit of it back.
The earring.
The earring. And she uses this very modern, very cynical economic analogy to explain it.
The privatization auction.
It's such a Russian joke, so deeply rooted in the trauma of the 1990s. She says a robbery is when you take everything, and that's a crime. But a privatization auction, like the ones where massive state assets were sold for pennies to oligarchs, that's when you take almost everything, give back some tiny, meaningless token, and suddenly it's legal business.
So she sees herself as an honest businesswoman.
By the standards of modern Russia, absolutely. She's just playing by the rules of the local economy.
I want to pivot now to her philosophy on beauty,
Mhm.
because this is the part of the text that really stopped me in my tracks. Your miner's lamp theory.
It's brilliant. It completely inverts how we think about attraction.
Explain it. Because
Yeah.
usually we think of beauty as a property of the object, right? We look at a
The-
person or a painting and we say, that is beautiful. We think the beauty is in the thing.
Exactly. Ahulai argues that's completely wrong. Beauty does not exist in the woman at all. A woman is simply a mirror.
And the man, where does he fit in?
The man is the miner. Imagine a miner walking through a pitch-black cave, and he's got a bright lamp strapped to his forehead. He projects this beam of light wherever he looks. Ahulai says men are constantly projecting their own desires, their own internal ideal of beauty, outward from their own minds.
So when a man looks at a woman and thinks, wow, she's gorgeous,
He's just seeing his own light reflected back at him. A beautiful woman, according to her, is simply someone whose mirror, her face, her body, her personality, is fixed at the exact right angle to catch his light and bounce it straight back into his eyes.
that is just unbelievably cynical. It basically implies all attraction is just a form of narcissism. Men are just falling in love with their own projections.
Ahuli would just call it mechanics. And this, she argues, is why the fox is superior to a human woman. A human woman's mirror is fixed. She looks the way she looks. If the angle is wrong for a particular man, he sees nothing. But the fox,
She can tilt the mirror.
she can tilt the mirror. Using her tail, her hypnosis, she can adjust her angle of reflection at will to perfectly match the specific neurotic desires of whoever is paying her. She makes him see exactly what his lamp is looking for, whether he even knows he's looking for or not.
She has that great analogy about the collective farmer, doesn't she?
Oh, yeah. The farmer who sells his cow and goes to Moscow, he wants to buy a Porsche, but he only has enough money for a Lada. She sees men as these totally deluded consumers. They think they're buying beauty, this external valuable thing, but all they're really paying for is to see their own fantasies reflected back at them. They're just paying for a clean mirror.
She takes it even further. She calls beauty a demon.
Yes, a demon that serves the species but destroys the individual. It's a fire that burns you up, it lures you into reproduction, uses your energy, and then just discards you. It's a very Schopenhauer-esque view of the world. Desire is a trap that just keeps the wheel of suffering turning.
Okay, let's look at the men she traps, because through her clients, Pelevin gives us this absolutely razor-sharp satire of the different archetypes of modern Russia. First up, we have the Sikh.
The portfolio investor, and she describes him as looking like a chocolate Easter rabbit in his pink turban. He meets her at the bar in the National Hotel.
He thinks he's found his childhood romantic dream. He sees her as this innocent, mystical Eastern beauty. But Ahuli, she just turns the date into a theology seminar.
Yeah, they get into this really heavy debate about God-finding versus God-seeking.
What's the difference?
Well, this is Ahuli showing off her 2,000 years of perspective. She dismisses seeking God because searching implies God is lost or hidden or far away. She prefers finding God in the immediate, brutal reality of the now. And she uses this incredibly gruesome image to make her point.
The execution.
The execution in the market square. She says God is the executioner, God is the victim, God is the axe, and God is the blood splashing on the ground. It's a concept of total non-duality. Everything is God, even the horror.
But the horror becomes very real for the Sikh. The illusion fails.
He slips off the tail. It's like a technical glitch. His mind drifts, the hypnosis breaks for a split second, and suddenly he's not looking at his dream girl anymore.
He's looking at the reality.
Which is a werefox on all fours with a fiery tail raised, preparing to feed on his life force.
And his reaction is extreme.
He jumps out the window. It's suicide, not out of despair, but out of sheer ontological shock. His reality just shatters. And Ahuli's reaction is what's really chilling. She feels no guilt. She just analyzes it in terms of karmic echoes.
Like it's just a predator-prey relationship.
Exactly. If the prey dies of fright, that's not the predator's fault. It just shows her complete and utter detachment from anything resembling human morality.
Then we get to Pavel Ivanovich, the liberal masochist. This felt to me like the most biting political satire in the first half of the book.
Oh, absolutely. Pavel is this elderly scholar. He pays Ahuli to whip him, but he frames it as a kind of political penance. He says he's repenting for the economic reforms of the 1990s. He's the embodiment of the guilt-ridden Russian intelligentsia.
He has this amazing theory distinguishing the intelligentsia from intellectuals. I think we need to break this down
Yeah.
because it explains so much of the mindset in the book.
It's a brilliant distinction. Pavel says the intelligentsia were the, say, 100,000 people who hated the dragon,
Yeah.
which was the Soviet totalitarian state. They spent decades dreaming of the toad that would one day replace it.
The toad being liberal democracy, capitalism.
Right. They thought the toad would be beautiful. They romanticized it. But when the dragon finally died and the toad arrived,
The toad didn't need 100,000 dreamers.
it needed 3 intellectuals, 3 paid professionals, a lawyer, a PR guy, an economist, hired guns to service the toad. He's mourning the complete irrelevance of the Russian soul in the face of raw, pragmatic capitalism. He realizes his entire class was made obsolete by the very change they prayed for.
But even with this guy, Ahuli loses her cool over something unexpected. He insults Vladimir Nabokov.
He does. He calls Nabokov the godfather of pedophilia. And Ahuli just snaps. She completely breaks character. She starts defending Lolita, arguing it's not about abuse, it's about the fragility of the soul and the desperate need for financial security.
It shows she has buttons you can push.
For sure. Despite her 2,000 years of detachment, she really identifies with the Nymphet, this misunderstood creature of desire. It's a rare crack in her armor.
And during the same session, Pavel tells her about the Shipman Project. This seems like a total throwaway joke at first.
It really does. He tells a story about a Shakespeare scholar named Igor Shitman. The poor guy devoted his life to Shakespeare, learned English, and then realized his own name literally meant shit man.
And it drove him insane.
He started screaming, "Same shit, different day," over and over. Pavel uses this to argue that names are suggestive commands, a kind of time bomb planted in your identity that scripts your entire life. And this idea that language controls destiny, it seems like the ramblings of a madman, but Ahuli files it away. It's the seed for the whole mystery.
Okay, so we've set the stage. We have the fox, her philosophy, her clients. Now we get to the main event, the werewolf.
Enter Alexander, or Sasha as he's called.
The whole thing starts when Ahuli gets summoned by an FSB colonel, this guy named Mikulich. He demands she compensate the state because a previous client filed some kind of complaint.
And she goes to this bizarre apartment. It looks like a garage, but it's got a fireman's pole that leads up to a penthouse.
And Mikulich is not stable.
Not at all. He injects ketamine intravenously right while she's there. And Ahuli, because of her nature, she witnesses his hallucination, these orange tunnels of self-operating programs. It's this terrifying glimpse into the chaotic, drug-fueled mind of the security state. It suggests the people running the show aren't rational actors at all. They're just hallucinating power.
But then Alexander arrives, and he pulls up in a Maybach, the absolute ultimate luxury car.
And you have to notice the permit on his windshield. It has a gold, double-headed eagle and a quote from Pushkin. Lo and behold, this somber carriage. Ahuli looks at it and immediately dismisses it as kitsch.
Bad branding.
Terrible branding. It's the new Russian state trying to wrap itself in the glory of theirs, but it just comes off as tacky. It's an imperial eagle on a German car. It's all wrong.
Alexander himself is handsome, brooding, very much the Russian elite. He buys her $28,000 worth of Tiffany rings. He's clearly trying to court her.
He tries to be romantic. He compares her to the Scarlet Flower, which is the Russian version of Beauty and the Beast. He's trying to cast them both in this classic fairy tale. He wants to be the beast who is saved by beauty.
And Ahuli is having none of it.
Not a bit. She just brutally deconstructs the fairy tale as a metaphor for incest and defloration. She completely refuses to play the damsel, so she decides to do what she always does. She's going to hypnotize him.
So she goes to the bathroom, unfurls the tail, and gets ready to, zap his brain. She thinks he's just another miner with a lamp on his forehead.
She jumps out ready to strike, and it fails. Completely.
Why? What's different about him?
Because Alexander isn't human. He transforms, and this is the critical distinction Pelevin makes between the fox and the wolf. The fox creates illusions, it's subjective, it's all in your head, but the wolf is a physical transformation.
He turns into a man-wolf.
Ash gray fur, stripes on his legs, a white mark on his chest that looks like a tie. He describes his own transformation as being like a drawing on a door into the beyond, and then suddenly that door opens and the drawing steps out. It's objective reality. You can't disbelieve a wolf that's standing right in front of you.
And the whole thing, it turns out, was a massive, terrifying comedy of errors.
A completely terrifying one. Alexander thought Ahuli's tail was some kind of secret weapon, a red lens that could burn people's brains out. That was Mikulich's brilliant intelligence report. Bad intel, as usual.
And Ahuli thought Alexander was just another powerful man, maybe a rapist.
Exactly. But instead, they end up bonding over iodine and bandages after a brief struggle. They realize they're two supernatural creatures in a world of clueless humans.
So now we have our power couple, a fox and a wolf. And through Alexander, we finally get to the title of our deep dive. The Sacred Book of the Werewolf is essentially his manifesto. He explains the metaphysics of modern Russia.
And this is where the satire just goes into absolute overdrive. Alexander explains the whole structure of the Russian elite. He divides it into two groups, the oligarchy and the apparat.
I love the fake etymology he comes up with here. He says oligarchy comes from the words oil and gargle.
The oil garglers, the ones who are choking on the black gold, and the apparat, the state machinery. He says that comes from upperat.
The upperats and the oil garglers, and they form a Ouroboros.
The snake biting its own tail. He calls it a royal autocephalic Ouroboros. The business community steals the country's resources, and the state, the upper rats, allows them to steal in exchange for kickbacks and bribes. It's a perfectly closed loop of theft. There's no production, only consumption.
He also describes this thing called the Robinson Crusoe game. This is, frankly, it's grotesque, but it's such a powerful metaphor for the hopelessness he feels.
It is visceral. He describes a game that was supposedly played in prisons. A man sits in a tub of water with only the sensitive part of his anatomy above the surface. He then places a fly with its wings pulled off on top of it.
So the fly is on a little island.
A tiny island. And the game is just watching this wingless fly wander aimlessly, completely trapped, unable to fly away, surrounded by deep water. Alexander calls it a meditation on hopelessness, and that's his metaphor for life in Russia. Just wandering a small, sensitive island with no wings, going nowhere.
This guy's a lieutenant general in the FSB, and that is his worldview.
That's the nihilism at the very heart of the state. It's not about ideology anymore. It's just about managing the hopelessness. And it gets darker. Ahuli starts searching his penthouse when he's not around.
She finds files on Nordic mythology.
She finds a file on Fenrir, the giant wolf from Norse mythology, who is destined to eat the sun at the end of the world.
And she finds a notebook.
A notebook titled Shipman Project Top Secret.
The shipman again. It's back.
And Ahuli starts connecting the dots. She realizes this isn't just about one crazy scholar anymore. She thinks about how America has these beautiful rappers for its power, you know, Superman, Batman, Hollywood. But Russia lacks that. Russia has the shit man. She starts to suspect the state is trying to engineer a new rapper, a new national myth.
While all this is going on, we also get these letters from Ahuli's sisters, right? Ehuli in Britain and Uhuli in Thailand.
Yes, and these letters widen the scope. This isn't just a Russian story. Ehuli, who is an aristocrat, talks about the coming of a super werewolf, and she has this theory that he might appear where a temple has been destroyed and then rebuilt, which is a clear reference to the Cathedral of Christ the Savior in Moscow.
And Uhuli in Thailand is complaining about dollar syrup.
She says the West has coated the entire East in this sticky, corrupting dollar syrup. It paints this picture of the foxes as these global observers watching humanity drown in its own greed. They're the only ones standing outside the system watching the upper rats and oil garglers destroy everything.
Okay, let's fast forward to the big revelation, the tattoo revelation. Huli goes to a militia station for a sabbatnik.
Which is supposed to be a day of voluntary community work, like cleaning the streets. But in this case, it's an orgy. She's servicing the local police force. It's just this bleak, bleak image of total corruption.
And while she has these policemen under hypnosis, she finds a book of criminal tattoos. And these aren't just, skulls and daggers. They look like prophecies.
They're reflections of the spiritual insanity of the times. She sees a tattoo that says swat, 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 which in Cyrillic script reads like sviat, sviat, sviat. Holy, holy, holy.
So state violence has become the new religion.
Exactly. She sees another one of St. George on horseback, driving lesbians off a major Moscow boulevard. It's this insane mix of nationalism and homophobia encoded in ink.
And the nuke. The Nike nuke.
A mushroom cloud with the Nike swoosh over it and the single word, nuke. It's the ultimate convergence of consumer branding and total annihilation. Just do it, even if it is the end of the world. It's pop art for the apocalypse.
And right after seeing this, she turns on the TV.
This is it. This is where the shitman thread finally pays off. She's watching a BBC report about a suicide bombing in London. A Chechen essayist has been assassinated. The bomber shouted something strange right before he detonated the device.
Same Shiite, different fight.
Which is a pun on Same shit, different day. The exact phrase that drove the scholar Igor Shitman completely insane.
So the Shipman Project, it wasn't just a branding exercise.
No, it implies mind control.
Yeah.
Linguistic programming, the weaponization of words and names to turn people into zombies or remote-controlled assassins. It suggests that humanity is being scripted towards destruction by these hidden commands embedded in our language, in our very identities.
And the FSB, the upper rats, they're trying to write the code.
They're trying to rewrite the source code of reality to weaponize people.
That is genuinely terrifying. It completely reframes the whole book. It's not just a love story between a fox and a wolf. It's a story about trying to escape a programmed reality. So where does that leave us? What's the synthesis here?
I think the book ends by drawing this sharp contrast between the fox and the wolf. The fox is all about subjective illusion making. You see what you want to see. The wolf, on the other hand, is about objective, brutal transformation, becoming the beast.
And the super werewolf, the one mentioned in the prophecy.
Ahulai comes to a fascinating conclusion. She decides the super werewolf isn't some monster you're going to find in a cathedral. It's not a general in a Maybach. It's internal. It's a state of moral self-improvement. It's the potential within everyone to transcend the script.
It's realizing you don't have to be a miner and you don't have to be a mirror.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for us, for you listening to this? Why should you care about the memoirs of a 2,000-year-old supernatural prostitute?
I think Pelevin is asking us to look at the lamps on our own foreheads. We're all constantly projecting meaning, projecting beauty, and letting our names and our labels script our lives. We're all walking around in a world of dollar syrup and upper rats, playing roles we never consciously chose. We are all, in a way, participating in the Robinson Crusoe game, stuck on our own little islands, thinking we're free because we can twitch a wing.
And the only way out isn't to buy a Porsche or become a general.
No. The only way out is to realize that the things we chase, beauty, status, national glory, are just illusions. They're illusions created by our own desperate need to see something, anything, in the dark.
And that leads to the final provocative thought. If our idea of beauty is just a projection from our own minds, and our destiny is just a linguistic program we're running, then who's writing the code?
That is the question. And maybe, just maybe, if we can find a way to turn off the lamp on our forehead just for a second, we might finally see what's actually standing in the dark right in front of us.
Whether it's a beautiful woman, a wolf, or just the void. A huge thank you to everyone for listening. This has been a deep dive into the sacred book of the werewolf. Keep your lamps trimmed and burning, but maybe check what they're pointing at once in a while.
See you in the next one.